Hey now, so finally we're going to be taking a look at an anime series that's based after a game that I'm actually familiar with, and that happens to be Danganronpa, which is a visual novel slash point and click style adventure game on the PS Vita, although it did originally start on the PSP. And as I said, I've played them all, I've beaten them all, so I'm very familiar with its source material. So without further ado, let's talk about the story first. So it begins with our main character, Makoto Naegi, and he's a typical nothing special type of high school student, and he gets randomly selected to join a school called Hope Speak Academy, which is a school that only the top elite students can join. So he's very shocked about this because he's all like, holy shit, someone like me can join this school? Well, hot damn. So as soon as he enters within the school, it seems like everything's all twisty and turvy and he gets knocked the fuck out. And then when he wakes up, he's inside a classroom, and everything seems kinda odd because all like the windows are boarded up, and everything just seems very dark and gloomy. So after realizing that he has to go to the gym, he ends up meeting all the other characters, and I'll introduce him here shortly since there's quite a lot of them here. So you have Yasuhiro, who is known as the ultimate fortune teller, then there's Junko, who is the ultimate fashionista, then there's Celeste, who is known as the ultimate gambler, then there's Sakura, the ultimate martial artist, Hifume, the ultimate fanfic writer, yeah, that's an actual thing, Mondo, the ultimate biker gang, Chiriho, the ultimate programmer, Ishimaru, the ultimate moral compass, Byakuya, the ultimate affluent prodigy, Toko, the ultimate writer, Leon, the ultimate baseball star, Sayaka, the ultimate pop sensation, and then we have Asahina, the ultimate swimmer, and finally there's Kyoko, the ultimate question mark. Yeah, because that can't fool anyone. So anyways, all these students are all stuck in this school not knowing what the fuck is going on, until they see something pop up from the stand, and that happens to be a giant bear. And that happens to be Monokuma, who is apparently the principal of this school, who is a crazy son of a bitch. So he tells them all that they're all trapped inside this school and no one can leave unless they do one simple thing. And that happens to be killing each other. Yes, this is another one of those death game things. So the thing is, Monokuma will usually give them a reason to make them kill each other, you know, a motive. And then once someone gets killed off, then they're gonna have to do some investigations to figure out what killed these people, because at the end of the day, they have to do a trial. And I literally mean a trial because they have to prove each other to figure out who is the murderer and who is innocent. So if the murderer is not caught by the end of it all, then everyone dies except for the murderer, where they get to go free. But if they catch who the murderer was, then the murderer gets punished and everyone else just has to go back to their daily routine. So of course this whole situation puts everybody on edge. So while there are some characters that are just trying to figure out what the fuck is actually going on and who is behind the whole thing, while others are just in it for themselves because they just want to get the fuck out of there as soon as possible. So this is where I'm going to end things here when talking about the story, because I'll be honest, talking about this one is not an easy thing to do, whether it comes to the games or the show, because it's pretty obvious that the cast of characters will get smaller each time, so I can't go too much detail in the characters since, you know, that'd be a massive spoiler. But to sum it all up, it's basically Saw, but if it was all cuckoo bonkers. So now, let's get moving on and start talking about the animation. And I think they did do a pretty good job with this, because I do find that the graphic style from the game does look a lot like how it does here. And everything is very recognizable, and of course the punishment scenes all have that same animation style like the games have. But with that said, the animation isn't the best you'll ever see, but it definitely does suit the game very well, so because of that, it does a good job at trying to accurately portray how the game looks. So I'd say that the animation is really good in that perspective. And now, when it comes to the show's music, it's also pretty damn spot on. So most of the songs that are from the game do reappear here, and they're both fucking great. So a lot of the songs within the game have some really nice techno music in it, nothing too crazy and over the top, but very subtle and very good sounding, and also pretty catchy. And of course the show has all of that, so I really have no complaints about the music whatsoever. Although I'm not a big fan of the opening theme song, but it at least does suit the show for what it is, so I don't really have a big complaint with that. I'm just not a big fan of rap music. So at the end of the day, it does suit with it, and it actually doesn't sound bad, it's just not my favorite thing ever. So now, let's get moving on and start talking about the voice acting. And this is where things get really strange. because most of the voice acting within the show is almost entirely different from the game's voice acting. Now, I personally don't have an issue with them changing voice actors and all that kind of stuff, because it is kind of interesting to see how other people can portray that character. But sadly to say, this one I find is a mixed bag. So Makoto Naegi is being played by Bryce Preppenbrook. That's actually the only voice that's from the game that's also present here, and you know, he suits the role very well. Nothing much I can say there. And then Sayaka is being played by Monica Ryle, and I think she suited the role really well, and surprisingly enough, I think this is actually one of the few roles where the anime actually got it better than the game. Emi Shimura being played by Austin Tyndall, and it was okay, but I definitely preferred the one from the game much better. And then Junko is being played by Jamie Marich. I found it was alright, but definitely pales in comparison to the games. And then Byakuya is being played by Josh Jarrell, and as again, it was okay, but just not nearly as good. And then Hifumi is being played by Tyson Reinhardt, and this one was really weird for me because I don't know if it's just me, but it almost sounded like he was trying to play an old man. Or should I say an old nerd, but either way, it just didn't really work well for me. And then Chiriho is being played by Kira Edwards, and I think she actually did a pretty good job. Though, to be honest, I can't remember exactly how it sounded from the game since it has been a while, but I do remember it sounding just as good, so I don't know, I'd just say it's a tie. And then Toko is being played by Carly Mosier, and I think she did do a pretty good job. Although I do prefer the game's voice for her, this one is still pretty good for what it is. And then Mondo is being played by Christopher Sabat, and this one was also pretty good, not nearly as good as the game, but still pretty good enough that it is noteworthy. And then Sakura is being played by Rachel Robinson, and I think she actually did a really good job here. Honestly, I think this is one of the other few roles that I prefer here than in the games. And then Asahina is being played by Felice Angeli, and this one I was just not a big fan of personally. I mean, it wasn't like the worst role ever, but it definitely could have been much better. And then Leon is being played by Justin Cook, and this one was just kind of okay, just, you know, not nearly as good as the other one. And then Celeste is being played by Lindsay Siddle, and I think this one actually did a much better job than in the game, so good on that. And then Yasuhiro is being played by Christopher Bavins, and this one was just really lacking. And then Kyoko is being played by Caitlin Glass, and this one was actually not too bad, but I didn't like it as much as the games, but it was still alright. And finally, Monokuma is being played by Greg Ayres. Or what I called him in my other videos was Greg Reese, but yes, I finally figured out how to pronounce it now. Anyways, the point being is that him as Monokuma fucking sucks. I'm sorry, but he really just can't do maniac crazy shit. Like, maybe he could have suited another character in this show, but as for Monokuma, god no. So yeah, there definitely was a lot of other choices they could have had to pick Monokuma, but no, they had to pick Greg Ayres. And as you know me, it seems like I like to hate on this guy. Well, it's not like I'm trying to, it just so happens that most of the animes that I watch that he plays a character in, he just always happens to do a pretty meh or crappy job. Well, except one, but anyways, I already talked about that. But anyways, the point being is that the voice acting here is a lot different, and personally, as you know me, I do prefer the game's voice acting overall, but there are some roles here that did improve upon the game's voice acting, which is good. So now, before I get into the overall score, everything here seems to be pretty well and good, as you think, but now we get into the harsh territory, because this is where things hit the shitter. So my main issue with this show being adapted is that this show is unbelievably rushed. And the main reason why it's rushed is that it has to do with the investigations. They barely take up any time, and then once it gets to the trial scenes, it just seems like it just makes shit up as its own. And the other reason why this show is very rushed is that it doesn't give you a lot of time to know most of the characters. Honestly, the only reason why I know most of the characters is because I played the games, but if I didn't play the games and I watched this show, then I would have been lost. But despite this show being very rushed, I will give them some credit that at least they did have all the major scenes that are very important. And that's all well and good, but unfortunately, the characters and the interactions with each other and the development is really what made this series so interesting, and it sucks that they took most of that away because of the time limit. And the time limit being 13 episodes. Alright, so that's really unfortunate to hear, so now let's get into the score. So, if I were to rate this one, I think I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Yeah, sadly to hear, I tried really hard to wanting to like this one because I really like the game series and all, but nope, it just wasn't it. And it really sucks too, because everything else is like almost spot on, you know, when it comes to the animation, the music, and the fact that they have all the important scenes. And the English voice acting is kind of a mixed bag, but of course you can always just switch to the Japanese, where that one actually is the exact same voice actors and such. So that's not much of a problem. But like I already said, the main issue with this show is that everything just feels really rushed and a lot of the characters are just missing a whole lot of context. But as butchered as this show was, I will have to say, it's not the worst video game adaptation anime that I've ever seen, which is why I'm giving it a 5, because the show is at least watchable, but I can't say that it's that good. Which indeed is very disappointing, because the overall idea for the show is pretty fucking awesome, so it really is a shame. But as for recommending this one, that is going to be kind of hard to do because, like I said, there's a lot of things here that are missing, so if you've already played the games, I can't recommend this one. And even if you never played any of the games and you want to get into the series, then watching this show is going to be kind of a weird one because, thinking about it now, during the time when this show came out, the game was only on the PS Vita and the PSP, but, you know, the PSP version was only in Japan. Where nowadays you can play the entire series on Steam, PS4, and even mobile phones. So if you at least have some sort of interest within this series and you have at least one of those platforms that you can play the games on, then you know what? At least you do have your options now, because unfortunately the PS Vita is not the most popular system, which is a damn shame. But anyways, it's just really saddening to know that they really butchered this one, and I'm fully aware that there are people out there that still really like this one, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I just had a bit of a hard time enjoying this one considering what it's based after. Well, hopefully the other Danganronpa animated series did a lot better, but we'll have to see whenever I get there. But as for this one, it's just kinda mediocre.